now I just need the other one. Go ahead, select. Test, yeah.
Yes. No, you have to make it, yeah.
We will if we need to, but we tested them this morning and they were fine. Testing. Test. Oh, there it is. I had a sleepy finger, that's all. Well, it is such an honor to be sitting here and talking to you. We spoke on Zoom in January, and I said, I'd like to talk to you first before we actually sit down and talk. So we had a great time. And I wanted to give a little bit about your writing credentials because, sure. Yeah, they're pretty good. So her writing credentials are so impressive. She has been co-authoring Murder, She Wrote series with Jessica Fletcher. You always have to say that, by the way. Murder, She Wrote, co-authored with Jessica Fletcher, because that is a fact.
And if you look in the library and you're looking for the books, if you look under Moran, you may not find them. They're filed under Fletcher.
That's a good tip for you next time
yes.
you're here. So you have already contributed 9 books to the series, and your next book in the series comes out in December. Now, prior to joining Murder, She Wrote team, Terrie authored the Read 'em and Eat Cafe and Bookstore series, where, as Terrie likes to say, murder and sweet tea are always on the menu. The first book in the Read 'em and Eat series, Well Read, Then Dead, received the Agatha Award for Best First Novel. She's also co-written 4 novels in the New Orleans scrapbooking mysteries with Laura Childs. And as has been mentioned, Terrie's short stories have been published in several mystery magazines and anthologies. So we are delighted that you are here today. Thank you for coming out from New York City to join us and have a chat about your writing and Murder, She Wrote, which there are a lot of fans. All you have to do is turn on the TV, right?
I'm delighted to be here. And I got to take the Amtrak train up.
Can you hold the mic just a little bit
No,
closer?
okay, yeah. Okay. I
Thank
took the Amtrak train up with my daughter-in-law, Shannon Moran, and we had a great time. We got to talk about the entire family. I do have family members who surprised me by coming in the back, Joe and Tom, if you just go like that. And we didn't talk about you. I know, but on the way home we're going to talk about you. I just wanted to get that in. But I'm really delighted to be here. This sounds terrible for a New Yorker my whole life. I haven't been in Albany in about 30 years. So it was time. So thank you very much for the invitation.
Well, you're welcome. We're glad you're here. So let's talk about what first drew you to the series. What was it about Murder, She Wrote when it was on TV? Because you said you were a fan from way back. So what first drew you to the series?
If I had to pinpoint it, it would be at that time, I've always been a mystery fan, mystery reader. At that time on television, the shows were male-dominated and predominantly car chases. One of the greatest things about Jessica Fletcher is she doesn't drive. She's got to figure out, call a cab, get you to take her. Jacqueline, I need a ride. Seth shows up and he drives her someplace. So it was so different. It was something, I had small children at the time. The series began in September 1984, and I had small children. And you couldn't have the TV on with violence. The kids are playing on the floor, and I'm, supposed to be watching them, but I'm watching the television. But you couldn't have violence. You couldn't have all this evil stuff. And this was just a nice, clean mystery. To the point, and Shannon's husband can verify this. We would go to my mother's in the Bronx for dinner on Sunday. And Murder, She Wrote started at 8 o'clock. We lived in Queens. So at 6:30, I'm jumping around the house going, come on, pick up your toys, you gotta go. And my husband, the calmest man in America, would be, what's the matter with you? We got plenty of time. I said, no, there could be traffic on the bridge. Because in those days, if you missed the beginning, I didn't want to see the ending without the beginning. There was no DVR. There was no, like now you can see Murder, She Wrote on 4 or 5 different TV stations. pick a time, pick a day, and you can find it. In those days, if you missed it during the regular season, maybe it made the reruns in the summer, and maybe it didn't, because they didn't rerun as many as they had. So my life was a big crisis on Sunday. But seriously, I was a major, major fan. And then when Don Bain, God rest his soul, started writing the books, every book that came out, I read when the DVDs came out. I own the entire set of DVDs, including 4 movies that she made after. So I'm a little bit...
Of course you do.
Right. I was just always a major fan, and it probably had a little bit of influence on my writing, but because I write cozy, but never in my wildest did I ever think that I would be writing murder.
We're going to get into the book part of it, but first I want to talk about the TV series a little bit longer.
Sure.
I asked you when we did the interview on Zoom in January, I said, what is your favorite episode? And you said to me, it is season 5, episode 3. I think it's Mr. Penroy's Vacation. So we have a 2-minute clip here queued up, and I'm just going to step over there. No, you stay put.
Okay.
I'm just going to step out of the way. I'm more in it than you are, so just ignore me.
Oh, this is great.
This Penroy's always giving him a treat. Probably a ball buried in there.
I know it'll take us a minute to get lights back up. So what is it about this episode that you like so much?
First of all, it's the only episode that featured Winston the dog of Ray. And I was always a little disappointed that in the book series we have a different mayor, because since we don't have that mayor, we can't have Winston the dog. So that was one thing. The other thing was that there were 2 women in the series, the Appletree sisters, who were basically a takeoff on an old movie where they had a boarder, and the boarder died, and they neglected to notify Social Security and his pension and all that stuff, because how were they going to pay their bills if they didn't have a boarder anymore? So it was like cutesy, old, reminded you of all the stuff you saw on anybody from New York City, Channel 9, when we were kids that ran a movie 14 times a day for a week, and that kind of stuff. It reminded you of all those things. It was just, of all the lighthearted Murder, She Wrote, this was probably the most lighthearted in my mind. And yet there was a serious murder with a serious killer. And I always marveled at how well Jessica was able to show that. Like, she, even when other people were like dizzy about things, she always had her serious focus. So that's why I love it. I'm sorry.
That's great. No. So I'm going to ask one more question, and then, so I want you all to be getting ready. I know people have questions, and I want you to warm up. Let's talk about book number 363 in this series. Was written by your fellow co-author, right, Barbara?
Yes.
Barbara Early. It comes out in May. It's her second book, and as I mentioned earlier, you co-authored 9 of them.
Right.
So, a couple of questions in this. How much do you talk to each other about the plots, the characters, and do you talk to Jessica at all too?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It's not so much at the table where my books are, there's a few pencils. They're giveaways, everybody grabs them until they're gone. But it says, what would Jessica do? And that's kind of like, this is going to sound really crazy. I feel like I know her so well that I can anticipate. And I don't always, well, the other things, I don't always get her the way I see her. And you've been a fan for years, and you see her, and then you write to me, and then I have to tell you, well, I thought it was this, and then you say, well, I thought it was that, and we really disagree, which is, you know, the whole thing. But I think that Jessica is easy to read almost. You know, she's not, there's nothing fake about her. She is who she, I was always amazed when the killer would be in the TV show. The killer would be a friend of hers, and she would just like shake her head like she was so disappointed. And I mean, you know, I'd be like, I can't turn him in, I've known him for 35 years, you know, like at least you'd have a little bit. She never had a qualm, and that's a really remarkable person. You know, I mean, the strength of that was really remarkable. As to Barbara and I, there were several things. The first thing is that the original contracts for these books, this is all right, a technical crack, but it is what it is, was for 2 books a year. So my first contract was for 2 years, 4 books. Then Universal Studios owns Murder, She Wrote. My publisher does not own it. They have to pick the publisher, and the publisher has to pick the writer, and it goes on and on and on. So there was words between them, and it was all the money. It's always, it has nothing to do with me. I get paid the same. It doesn't matter. But for them, it's all about somebody making 35 cents or whatever it is. So they decided they were going to end the series. So they gave me a 1-year contract for 3 books. So I wrote the 3 books, but by the time I was writing the 3rd book, I called my editor and I said, are we really sure this is the last book? Because the last book of the series is going to be written completely different from the book that's going to go through the series. And she said, oh no, they changed their mind. There's going to be another contract next year. So I said, okay. So I wrote the 3rd book, but I said to myself, hey, never writing 3 books a year again. I'm
Seriously about that. That's hard. I mean,
it was horrible. Yeah. I mean, the good thing was I'd already written 4 books in the series, and it's something I know. Because this is not like a series that a writer makes up. If Dawn's making up a series, she makes up the series, those people belong to her. I'm dealing with people who've been in the TV show, have been replaced in the books by other people. The argument over what Sheriff Metzger's wife's name is went on from Dawn, who renamed her as Moran, to Jessica, who had to explain that Mort got divorced, and Adele went back to Brooklyn, to when Dawn died and John took the series. John went from the TV show, so he brought Adele back. So then I had to go back in and explain that no, it's Maureen. And somebody posted on Facebook, I wish these writers would make up their mind what the sheriff's wife's name is. But again, you're talking 12 years worth of TV shows written by various people. Dawn wrote 47 books. John wrote 6, and now I've written 9. Barbara's written 2. There is no what we call in the trade Bible. There is no stack of all who everybody's been. Like, if I want to know, Barbara and I just talked about this to get to how we talk. There's a guy named Jed Richardson who flies planes, and Jessica flies out of Catacomb Airport, which is like the size of this room. And I never knew the guy had a wife. Well, Barbara has him having a wife, so she looks up, and his wife's name was something, but now it's something else. So then she does further research and finds out somewhere in one book, somebody mentioned the guy had 3 wives. Not all at the same time, but he had 3. So I said to her, well, how the heck are we ever supposed to, I said, just take the last name, we'll just, whatever it is, you know. So that's the kind of stuff that how Barbara Early and I work together is that we have the same agent. And when I said I wouldn't do 3 books a year anymore, which they wanted, for the next contract they gave me 2 and Barbara 1, and then we went back to 2 books a year, which makes everybody's life easier. But Barbara and I started in the industry together. Our first books were published in, I'm going to make it up, 2014, I think, 2013, around there. And so we knew each other. Our writing styles are similar. I say this publicly all the time. She's a better writer than I am. She's a little bit more creative. I'm a little bit more structured. But if you read her books and my books, it's not a real major difference. She's got 2 series of her own published, and she's really talented. And
May I have your attention, please? If there's a Nicholas Feely in the library, please come to the Astor Librarian desk, Nicholas Feely.
It's good they didn't call me.
Well, this is a good time since you've had to take a pause. Did you want to say anything else about Barbara, or should we get some questions from the audience?
Just that I do seriously recommend that, you know, people get a little crazy when authors change. Like when Don Dave got sick, and he said he was in mid-contract. What do you do when you're in mid-contract and you can't fulfill? You call your agent. What does your agent do? He calls around his clients till he finds somebody who can pick it up before he tells the publisher you're pulling out. So while that went on, and then John Land took over the series, people were mad at Don. He had a heart condition and died. What would you like the guy to do? You know, it's very difficult to separate out the business part of this, because for the readers, that's not important. You want a book, and you want a book that you like. But we can't always do what you would like us to do.
It's kind of the story of publishing right now.
That's why
Right.
Barbara and I are a good team.
That's great. Okay, how about some questions from the audience? Yes?
Just to frame my question first, I'm not a real fan. Elizabeth, she watches. And
I knew she
I've
was.
watched some of it. But the point of the sheriff's frustration at one episode, he was actually screaming in Jessica's face, now strangers are coming here to be murdered. How do you keep that fresh in that, you know, the small town community? If reality, if you don't suspend reality would be there'd be nobody left but Jessica and the sheriff. They're all dead. But the freshness, how do you keep that fresh?
Okay, so we just talked about this last night. This is very funny. There is a meme that goes around, and in the opening credits of Murder, She Wrote, is, you know, they should have it called, and there's a sign, and it tells you it's got 3,000 and X number of residents. And in the meme, they have a big red X through the sign, and it says, you know, number of residents 2, Jessica Fletcher and the sheriff. One of the reasons that you can't, I confess that my favorite location for any Murder, She Wrote story is in Cabot Cove. I absolutely, but the gentleman is 100% right. You married a very smart guy. 100% right. You can't have it in Cabot Cove every week. They do, when I analyze the TV shows, they do about 5 to 7 Cabot Cove episodes out of 22 to 24 episodes a season. And that's still a lot. I get letters from, emails from readers who, why hasn't she been in Cabot Cove in the last 3 weeks? Well, because otherwise no one would be left alive. The other thing is that we have to also, and they did it in the TV show, you have to bring new people into Cabot Cove. Because if we still have the same people from the first, like Seth Haslett, Dr. Seth, was not in the first season. He came in the second season. He had to leave around the fourth season because he got a show of his own and didn't work, so then he came back. So, yeah, well, that's the same thing with my beloved Harry McGraw. Harry got Law and Order.
Yeah.
And that was it. And I was like, can't you just go back and do one murder show? I actually wrote a book where there was a murder in Boston because I wanted Jessica to visit Harry. But with the Cabot Cove, that's why there isn't, she can't be like in your average cozy, like when I wrote the Read Minute books, they all took place in Fort Myers Beach. You can't do that with a small town that goes on forever. You know, my books lasted three books this season. You know, the series was over and that was it.
Good question, thank you. Who else has a question? Yes?
Did Angela Lansbury have any influence on the storylines and all? And did you meet her?
I did not meet her because by the time I was signed on, she was not well. And in fact, one of my early books is dedicated to her because, and this is when the publishing industry was great. My book was at the printer, being printed when she passed away. And I spoke to my editor and we were able to have it pulled out of print, even though that cost the publisher a lot of money, so we could dedicate the book to her. So no, she was not well. Her influence was huge. What happened with the TV show, and I'm going to make this up, around season 6 or 7, she decided that she was tired and it wasn't going, you know, like she had exhausted the way Jessica Fletcher ran. And that's when she bought into part ownership. And that's when she got the place in New York. She lost weight. She wanted to upgrade herself from, like if you look at the very first episode, before she's a published writer, when her nephew steals her manuscript and brings it to a publisher, right? Yeah, this should happen to all of us, right? Yes. Anybody want to steal my manuscript and bring it to a publisher? That's great. She's a very she's not sophisticated. She's not, dopey, but she's not sophisticated. She decided she wanted the character to move into more sophistication. That's when they started New York, and when she started dressing more in suits and things of that nature. She also, at that point in time, bought a piece of the product. So she had the financial investment. So when she said that it took them 8 days a week, that's a song, right?
Well, you're a fiction writer. You're going to be 8 days a week.
It took 8 days to film an episode. And she made a deal with them that they could film the 8 days, but she would only work 7. Because, not that she was old, but she wasn't even as old then as I am now, but, she was tired, and that's the way she wanted to do it. So her influence has been on the outlook that we try to give you of the person that she is. Like, I wouldn't go back to the less sophisticated Jessica because that's not how she left us in the last episode. She grew in the series, both professionally and on the screen, in different ways.
Let me sneak in a quick question, because we're talking about small towns, and I'm right, mine's set in a small town. A lot of cozy, mine's not cozy, but a lot of mysteries are. What is it about small towns that attract readers or even authors? What do you think it is that people love reading about small towns? How can they connect?
I find that a great question because, as everybody can tell by my voice, I'm a Bronx girl, born and raised. So, I know nothing about small towns. But I think that even as a reader, if I did, created something in a big city, I can lose my characters. If you have a small town, and especially if you're doing a series, you got your protagonist, whoever that might be. She's got a best friend who lives 3 blocks away. you can bring characters back and it's not unusual. I mean, I graduated from high school 60 years ago, 50 years ago, whatever it is, and I'm still friends with girls that I went to school with, but not because it's because we still wanted it, because we had the connection of being in Catholic high school for 40 years, an all-girls school, and, and half of my girlfriends are still nuns, because that was our environment. So you react to your environment. And in a small town, you can create the environment with not bringing in 150 people. You can do it with 5 people or 9 people because you don't expect, a tie-up on, now living in Queens, a tie-up on the LIE to, prevent you from getting to her meeting or whatever it is. So I think that the small towns serve as like a capsule that the story would be in, and a comfort zone, yes. As a cozy reader myself, what I love about cozies is it's comfort. It's like, mashed potatoes, it's comfort food. And if you have a comfortable place to visit, me, Bryant Park behind the 42nd Street Library. When I was a kid, we used to sneak on the subway, but we used to go there. And I always was happy there because they had a public bathroom, and B, there was a library. So we used to go inside and play in the library. It was like paradise. You had a park and a library on top of each other, So in the cozy world, the towns are basically your comfort zone, and you join the protagonist in the comfort zone. I always tell the story. The first book I wrote in the Well Read and Dead, which is in the Beach series, about 2 weeks after the book came out, I got a Facebook message from a reader who said, "You killed blank." I will tell you the name in case you haven't read the book. But she was so invested, and then the woman, you didn't know she was dead for 3 chapters. And this reader was like, because she had already identified with the community and the place. That's why I think small towns do it. It's much harder to identify with the Empire State Building.
It's true, but although I lived in Philly for like 30 plus years, and I know it's a city of neighborhoods, just like New York. It's of neighborhoods, but there are fewer people in most neighborhoods than there are in small towns, so even fewer people to kill.
I live in the same apartment complex for 38 years. It's co-op, up and down apartment, 2-story buildings up and down. So there's like 600 people. I can count on one hand how many of them I actually know their names. And if it wasn't for the people with dogs that walk their dogs all the time, I wouldn't even recognize them. And one of the neighbors that I did know her name, she just moved into senior housing, so that probably knocks it down to like 3 people. And it's, it's my neighborhood. I get out, I walk every day. I have a big park behind my house. I go to the Japanese restaurant 2 doors down. I go every place my neighbors go, but I don't know who the heck they are.
There's big lonely murders in the building too.
That's true.
How many people do you know?
That's true, but that's why, I guess in my mind, that in a small town, you do know everybody because you're tripping over them all the time. I can go out and walk. I have new people move in next door, and the only reason I even know what they look like is I happened to be coming home from the deli the other day. I've been there for a couple of months. I happened to come home from the deli the other day, and the man came out to get a package out of his car. And we went back in the house, and I went, "Oh, they must have moved into Terrie and Dawn's apartment downstairs. Okay." And I may never see them again.
Right. It's funny. Who else has a question out there? I'm sure there must be some more. I mean, this is a chance to ask a question about Jessica Fletcher about Murder, She Wrote. Yes, ma'am.
When you ever deal with publishers, do they sometimes say, okay, we've done the patent code thing, now we'd like you to, do they ever give you suggestions, or any of the other co-writer suggestions about, we'd really like it to be set in Ireland this time, or in Queens, just for some, do you ever have little hints from them where they'd like it to go?
Once. That's not usual. But in one contract, I know, it's the contract for the 3 books in 1 year, and they asked for a Christmas book, which made sense because the books were going to come out in, I forget when they came out, I think it was March, August, and December. So they asked that the 3rd book on that contract be, but mostly they leave you alone. They've been very good about that. But that's only in the contract stage. Then you have to hand in a synopsis and let them know what you're thinking about. And again, now then you're dealing directly with an editor. You know, all the contract crap, that's noise. I say this as the mother of a lawyer, but that's sort of out of your hands. Writers, like, you will, as a writer, never speak about money to the publisher. You will never speak about any technical stuff to the publisher. You talk to your agent talks to them, your agent talks to you. Because it's important, I'm making up the because, but this is what I think. The relationship between the publishing house and the author should only be about work. So they're hesitant unless there's a certain thing. Like when John Land took over the Murder, She Wrote series, Don had been under contract, had done a synopsis, and was partway through writing the book. So John, part of his contract was to take over that book and finish it, and then the signatures at the bottom were by Jessica Fletcher, Donald Bain, and John Land. Because the publisher made the decision to not dismiss Don's book since he had, worked on it. And, so that it's a very polite industry. They're extremely polite. And they, I have never had 3 different series. I've never had anybody except the one time tell me they like a Christmas book. And I still don't know whose idea that was. But that was it.
There's a lot of authors. Did you want to ask a question? Or you just script? Okay, yeah, it happens.
Anybody, I did it. My daughter-in-law. I did it.
Who else has a question? Because if not, I know there, go ahead.
One more. It's not
Sure.
really about Jessica, it's about writing itself.
Sure.
And I think any of you could answer, but I'm interested in what is more important to you, motivation or discipline?
Discipline without a doubt. Sorry. Discipline. There's a.
No, I used to write, and when I was writing, it was 6 o'clock, rewrite.
Yeah.
11 o'clock to stop. It was every single night for years. It was just that.
Yeah, I always say that the best day and the worst day of your life is when you get a signed contract. It's the best day because, hey, look, I'm going to write a book. And the next is, oh, darn, I got to write a book. It's difficult. There is a saying that goes around that is accredited to a number of authors, so I don't know who said it originally 50 years ago. But it's, I only write when I'm inspired. Fortunately, I am inspired at 9 o'clock every morning. And I keep that in my head because, not that I write 9 o'clock in the morning, but I keep it in my head during the days when I'm like, oh, darn, I gotta finish this. I only got 3 more weeks. Towards the end, you get like, oh, this was such a good idea. Now,
Could I throw in one more thing?
Please, of course. Yes.
I've always thought that if you're going to write, you better read. How important is reading to the author?
Okay, Okay, that's a very good question. I always say I read two things in life, cozy mysteries and American history, nonfiction. Those are my two readings, for whatever reason. I read for a very long time before I wrote. The one thing I found, and I still read a lot, but the one thing I found out is I can't read a cozy while I am writing a cozy. So that's when I read my American history. I have a good time with that.
I know some people who don't read period when they're
Yeah.
writing, and I'm like, no way. I
Well,
don't know.
because you don't want to get accused of plagiarism that you didn't know you did.
Yeah.
You know, I mean,
It's like thoughts go in, and then
and
suddenly
you
they're
don't realize.
and then they come out of the character. Why not? So I'm glad you asked the writing stuff because I know there are a lot of authors here. I know how many there are. And so let's talk just a little bit more about the writing process. So
Okay.
what's your favorite part and what's your worst favorite part or least favorite part? And then taking aside the hey, I got a contract and
Right.
oops, now I have to write.
Yeah, my favorite part, of course, every writer in the room will agree is when I type the end. And what I've never understood is I type the end and when they send back my corrections and questions and stuff, somebody's always deleted the end because they don't put that in the book.
Oh, that's right.
But I put it on the paper because I want to look at it at the end, you know.
How do you feel about the revision process?
Oh, that all depends. I have a very checkered career with revision. No, this is true. How this works, just generally, is I send in the manuscript. My editor reads it. She's a developmental editor, the first person that reads it. She's following the storyline. I have gotten them back with a note that says, this is great, sending it to the copy editor. I have gotten them back with one question. I've gotten them back with pages of, I don't understand why they're doing this. I also, and I give Tracy Bernstein, my editor on this series, great. I mixed up, in the last half of the last book I sent in, I mixed up all the days. They were all having meetings about this crazy thing that happened. And like I'd be saying to you, oh, Jacqueline, we're going to meet on Tuesday. And then you and I would meet on Monday. And I did it for like the whole last half of the book. And I never do anything, because I'm perfect. And Tracy sent it back and she said to me, I think you need to look at when these meetings are going. Okay. And then I saw it and I went, oh, how could I? And of course, when I did my final 950 readings, I didn't notice it. But revisions, you can disagree. I have twice disagreed with the developmental editor, and if I disagree, I win. I'm the writer. It's on my head. It's my name on the book. If you're going to write me a letter and tell me how stupid the book is, you're going to write it to me, not to Tracy. But Tracy is really, really good. She's really an excellent editor. I would say, other than my little foible with the meetings, and I had the nerve to put meetings in the next book, so I can't wait to see what's going to happen. Other than that, I usually, if they make a recommendation, like I said, in the Irish book, I read in the Emerald Isle, the only edit I got back on that book was a guy walks into, Jessica's in Ireland, and the guy walks into the museum that she's in, and the editor wrote in the margin, why wasn't Jessica surprised when he walked in? I was surprised to see him there. And I went, oh, okay. So I had Jessica be surprised when the guy walked in. That was it. That was the entire book. That was the edit. So you have to trust them. It's sometimes difficult with the first time you work together. I've had like 5 editors over this course of numbers of series. And some of them you agree with more than others in terms of approach. But you always have to remember it's your work. But that means you got to sink or swim with your decision. In a way, it's kind of easy if you go along with everything the editor says. Well, then if you really messed it up and the editor didn't catch it or something, your head's gonna roll, because it's, like I say, your name is on the book.
What else? Anything else that people want to ask? You might wrap. Yes.
When you're writing about Jessica, a character that someone else created, does it make you want to write your own, come up with your own characters and do your own thing?
In those
Does
books.
it inspire you to?
Yeah, I have written my own series with my own people, separate from this.
Was that at the same time?
No, that was first.
Yeah, so now does it make you want to go back?
No,
No?
no, you know why? Well, I'm a very practical person. Penguin, I was contracted by Penguin when they were Penguin Publishing on their own. As I finished my third book, they merged with Random House. And Random House stripped down the cozy department, moved the person who ran it, she retired, that kind of stuff, because they thought cozy's day was done. So, but I already had a second contract with the second series, so but a lot of people moved out, they went to other editors and other publishing houses, and surprise, surprise, cozies were far from dead. So I've already done my own stuff. I'm going to do this. When the contract's here, and I'm going to retire. So I mean that, Shannon, how long have I been talking about retiring now? For the last 2 years. Yeah, I enjoy what I do, but I go back to I started in short stories because I couldn't publish my first novel. I shot my first novel for 8 years. I advise anybody, if you shot it for 2 or 3 years and you don't sell it, write it. That's what I had to wind up doing anyway. But I can create characters within Murder, She Wrote, because A, Jessica travels, B, I can set Murder, She Wrote in Calico, the book Calico, with characters you just haven't met yet. You will find when you read Barbara Early's books, because Dawn kept most meals in Calico in Mary's diner, like a diner place, breakfast place. Barbara added Riley's Irish pub, where now we're going to have the occasional lunch or dinner. Again, livens it up. I was able to change the publisher of the newspaper who I didn't like to a character that I did like. So we still have the measure of creativity. What I couldn't do, wouldn't do, ever, is take the main characters, Jessica Fletcher, Seth Hasley, Sheriff Morton, and change them. Because they are the glue. They hold, and Jessica we talked about this earlier, her personality is her personality. I do find the older I get, my personality just hardens more, and I'm sure that that's true for her. So, was I able, and Barbara will do it too, eventually, remove characters that were, because Dawn replaced almost everybody from the show when he started writing the books. So now, over time, and again, I came in at book 53 or something like that, 50 something. People change, they move. We have characters who've come back to Capital, characters who've moved. But my personal view on writing my own characters, if they fit within the concept of whatever story I'm writing, whether it's in Ireland versus in Capital or New York, I can add characters. I can't change Grady from that. You can't. I mean, Grady's Grady, Now, Grady is now married to Donna, which happened in season 5 of this series, and now he's got a 10-year-old kid who's named Frank after Jessica's husband. So, you know, I can't change that, and I wouldn't want to. I think, you know, I got a good suggestion recently, and this is how fans are. In season 1, episode 15, we see Jessica's brother, who we never see again, ever. And somebody wrote to me and said, why don't you bring the brother back? And I was like, oh, the ship, his daughter, yes, I remember. So I said to Tracy, you know what I think? I think we'll just bring him back for a little. And she said, well, how are you going to bring him? I said, no, come and visit Jessica or do something, you know, go to meet Grady, whatever. Like, he's not going to be a star. But I forgot she had a brother. She has all these nieces and nephews in the TV show. He's the only first-degree relative we've ever seen. So why not hang out with him again?
Speaking of hanging out, thank you so much.
For coming here today.
How'd you like that?
I know you're good.
So, cheating a little bit, when we were promoting the event, we were going to have costume contests, but I think we don't have costumes. So there's one costume back there. We have 2 costumes. Do we have any more? It sounds like an auction. Well, let's talk about that, and we'll step aside for a minute, and we're going to figure out what to do, because we have 4 lovely gifts over there, and we would like some of you to take them home. But first, before we do that, we're going to hear from the other 5 authors who have joined us today to talk